Hello my dear friends, you're in the Military with Summary channel, and today we will discuss the situation in the world on the 11th of March of 2026. Today we have a lot of very interesting updates, so let's start. During this video we will discuss the situation in the Middle East during the first part of the video, and during the second part of the video we will move to Ukraine. Now let's discuss, to my opinion, the most important and the most interesting update that was published regarding the situation in the Middle East. So this is the article that was published today, and this is a very interesting piece of news. The government of Spain has removed its ambassador to Israel according to a decision published Wednesday in the official state journal. So, from one side, nothing special about this article. So, what is interesting and important when talking about the Spain ambassador on the territory of Israel? I would like to remind you that yesterday the Iranians made two very important statements about the conflict in the Middle East. Let's discuss them in details once again. The Iranians said that any Arab or European country that expels the ambassador of Israel and the United States from its territory will, starting tomorrow, have full authority and freedom to pass through the Strait of Hormuz. So that was the first statement that was made by the Iranians. And the second one, Tehran is ready for de-escalation in the Middle East if neighboring countries stop using it to attack Iran. So this is the second statement. Summarizing everything, the Iranians told us that if any country will remove the embassies of the United States of America and Israel from their territories, then this European country will be able to use the Strait of Hormuz. So now let's back to the statement that was made by the Spanish authorities. Once again, according to this article, the government of Spain has removed its ambassador to Israel. So we see that the Spanish ambassador left Israel in the direction of Spain. Of course, this is not something that the Iranians were asking, but we understand that according to the language of diplomacy, the Israelis must do the same. They also must take their ambassador and to leave Spain in the direction of Israel. So let's wait and see, of course, what the Israelis are going to do this, but once again, according to the diplomatic language, they must do this, and very, very soon. And if it happens, then it will be a very interesting situation, let's say, related to the Strait of Hormuz, because from this very moment, Spain will complete everything according to the first demand of the Iranians, that if any country remove the embassies of Israel and the United States of America from their territories, then this country will be able to use the Strait of Hormuz. And this is a very interesting situation and very interesting to understand how the things are going to develop, because it seems that the Western countries, and first of all Spain itself, are trying to understand whether this thing is going to happen or not, and this is going to be obviously a very huge damage to the coalition if it happens. If the Israelis remove the embassy from Spain, and if from this very moment the Iranians will allow Spain to use the Strait of Hormuz, this is going to be the biggest political and media attack on the coalition. And obviously after this situation, we will find lots of states, lots of countries through the world who will follow and do the same. Another important thing is that today the Qatarians stated that since the beginning of this conflict, they haven't allowed the United States of America to use their territories to attack the military facilities and the territory of Iran itself. And this is the second statement that was made by the Iranians. If you remember, once again, Tehran is ready for de-escalation in the Middle East if neighboring countries stop using it to attack Iran. So this is a very important situation, and from this very moment, the Qatarians may increase their pressure on the coalition with the purpose to force them to stop using this territory to attack Iran. And if it happens, then there are very, very high chances that the Iranians will also stop bombing and attacking the state of Qatar and Bahrain. And if you take a look at our map, you will see that during the previous 24 hours, we haven't received almost anything from the territory territories of these two states. Maybe there are some negotiations behind the scenes between the Qatarians, the Bahrainians, and the Iranians, and maybe starting of today, the Iranians decided to reduce their pressure in the direction of these two states. So, a very interesting situation. We see that we don't see the monolith of the coalition. We see that there are more and more states, more and more countries are changing their minds regarding the situation in Iran and the Iran itself. Another important thing that, if you remember, yesterday we discussed that after the conversation between the President of the United States of America and the Russian Federation, the prices for oil went down. I would like to remind you that 2 days ago, several countries and several contracts and several futures were signed to buy oil at the level of $120 per barrel. But right after the conversation between the President of Russia and the President of the United States of America, the prices for oil went down, but not for a very long period of time, because most likely when the investors realize that most likely we won't see some big changes in the relations between the Russian Federation and the United States of America, and most likely we won't see the situation when Russia will supply every single country in the world with oil. Right after this understanding, the prices for oil once again went up, and this situation forced the Western countries to release their strategic oil reserves. According to information we have, according to the International Energy that has proposed its largest ever release of strategic oil reserves to lower crude prices that surged during the US-Israel war on Iran, officials said. The planned release would exceed the 182 million barrels released in 2022 after the escalation of the Ukraine conflict. And when this situation was announced, and not just announced but also confirmed by different countries, for example, according to information we have, the Germany to partially release national oil reserves, that was stated by different sources from Germany. Also, we had a report that Japan also support this idea. Japan will begin releasing oil from its reserves as early as Monday to offset disruptions in Middle East supply. That was stated by Prime Minister in Wednesday in Tokyo. So these statements and the common decision of this organization, of course, led to the situation when the prices for oil once again went down, according to information we have. As of the end of the 11th of March of 2026, the price for oil went down to the level of $84 per barrel. Of course, we understand that the situation won't end like this, because both the Iranians and the coalitions continue bombing and attacking each other, and at the same time with these updates with oil strategic reserves, with the situation with Spain, with the statements of Qatar and Bahrain, the Iranians began bombing and attacking almost everything that is located in the area of the Persian Gulf and the Strait of Hormuz. During the previous 24 hours, we received reports that several tankers were damaged and attacked by the Iranians. The consequences of attempts to pass through the strait, here we can see on the photos. Iran has again stated that it will not allow a single liter of oil intended for the interests of the United States and its allies to pass through the Strait of Hormuz, emphasizing that oil prices cannot kept artificially low, which means that the prices will grow. Furthermore, we received a report that since the last nights, at least 3 vessels or tankers were damaged or even destroyed on the territory of the Strait of Hormuz, which means that the ground operation in this area is imminent. But to carry out this ground operation, the United States of America needs to establish control over the Iranian side of the Strait of Hormuz. And as of the previous 24 hours, lots of videos were published from the Iranian side of the Strait of Hormuz. And here we can see how the US military forces continue bombing and attacking ships of Iran, even very small ships, because the United States of America are telling us that small ships even more important than big one, because the Iranians can use these small ships with the purpose to mine the Strait of Hormuz. And if it happens, of course, the situation will worsen significantly. At the same time, we continue receiving reports that the Iranians continued bombing and attacking energy infrastructure of this region, and probably the most important updates and videos are coming from the state of Oman. Here we can see an oil refinery or oil depot that was attacked by the Iranian drone, and as a result of the attack, the oil depot was completely destroyed, which also pushes the prices for oil to grow. At the same time, different sources are saying that there are talks between the Iranians and the Americans behind the scene, not like a direct talk, not like a direct talks, but somebody is in the middle, and the sources are saying that through these middle states, the Iranians published their own demands for a ceasefire. Iran still refuses all mediation regarding a ceasefire because it has conditions and wants real guarantees. Iran's conditions are guarantees of no return to war, a complete nuclear fuel cycle, and compensation. Very difficult to say what the Iranians are talking about the compensation, but obviously about hundreds of billions of dollars, of course. So the situation continue worsening. We see that the United States of America is preparing itself for the ground operation, and today another situation happened. Since the beginning of the 11th of March of 2026, neither the coalitions nor the Iranians have any obligations to attack each other's bank infrastructure. According to information we have, according to the Iranian sources, the coalition attacked the bank infrastructure of Iran. They were the first side who attacked the bank infrastructure, and as a result of this situation, the Iranians decided to strike back. And according to information we have, the states and companies and corporations through the Middle East began evacuation of their bank personnel, equipment, and so on, which obviously will lead to additional escalation and additional problems to the region. Now let's move to Ukraine. During the previous 24 hours, we received lots of very interesting updates. According to many Western media, Russia is the only winner of the Middle East conflict because it seems that in coming days, the United States of America will ease sanctions on Russia, which will allow Russians to earn lots of money. And Zelensky understands this situation. Of course, he doesn't want the Russians to sign contracts and to begin selling oil through the world, because he understands that this will allow the Russians to earn lots of money, and the Russians most likely will use this money to supply the conflict on the territory of Ukraine. So that is why Zelensky was forced to escalate the conflict at a maximum level. According to information we have, during the previous 24 hours, Zelensky attacked the theater of Russia with a significant number of drones and missiles. The most important attack took place on the territory of the city of Bryansk. We have already discussed this situation, but let's discuss this video once again because we received additional updates on this matter. In this video, we can see how the Ukrainians were attacking one of the biggest Russian plants that produced chips for air defense systems. We see that Ukrainians managed to deal significant damage to this area, and this attack took place yesterday, and today somewhere at noon time, pro-Ukrainian sources published this video where we can see the comparison of this plant military object of infrastructure before attack and after attack. Right now in front of your screens you can see the situation before the Ukraine attack, and this is the situation right after. As you can see, as a result of this attack, the Ukrainians managed to destroy or damage significantly up to 40 or even 50% of the building, and as you can see, the strikes were pretty accurate because the Ukrainians attacked the central part of this facility. Furthermore, according to information we have, during the previous day, the Ukrainians continued attacking the territory around the city of Belgorod. The Russians reporting that they were repelling attacks, and also the Ukrainians were using HIMARS missiles, and the sources reported that the Ukrainians attacked in the direction of the southern parts of Russia. The sources reported that there were problems and alarms in the area of the city of Sochi, and that there were reports that Ukrainians were attacking the southern parts of the Krasnodar region. And according to information we have, the Ukrainians were attacking this pump station, compressor station station by the name of Anapa. The Russians are saying that the Gazprom's compressor station Ruskaya was attacked. The company reported that its installations Beregovaya and Kazachная were also attacked. Since the 24th of February, Gazprom's objects in southern Russia have been attacked 12 times. So this pump station supports the Turkey pipeline and Blue pipeline. These are pipelines that go from the territory of Russia in the direction of Turkey, and that's the European countries, several European countries still use to receive oil and gas from the territory of Russia. So these attacks on the territory of Russia were following just one target: to stop export of Russian gas and oil through these pipelines. As you can see, the Ukrainians decided not to attack the pipelines themselves, because pipelines are located on the surface, on the bottom of the Black Sea, which is the international territory. So that is why the Ukrainians decided to attack these stations on the territory of Russia as a military object. But the Russians are saying that they managed to repel this attack, which means that the Russians will continue supplying European countries, several European countries, with gas and oil through these pipelines. Now let's discuss the situation on the ground. The Russians, as we understand right now, are tasked to create a buffer zone along the border between the Russian Federation and Ukraine. The Russians are trying to create this buffer zone, and they will continue this operation during the 2026 with the purpose to reduce attacks from the Ukrainian side. And during the previous 24 hours, the Russians managed to improve their position significantly, at least in the northern parts of the Sumy region. The Russians, according to the Minister of Defense and according to the Group of Forces North, managed to establish complete control over the settlement by the name of Chervona Zarya. Based on these reports, we have adjusted the map, and these are the changes on the ground, as you can see. Furthermore, according to different sources, the Russians began advancing deep inside of the territory of the Sumy region, and first sabotage and reconnaissance groups of the armored forces of the Russian Federation managed to approach the settlement of Bachivsk. And this is a very interesting situation, because the settlement of Bachivsk is the second largest settlement in the most northern parts of the Sumy region that the Russians began fighting for. The first biggest settlement was and is the settlement of Sopich, and this territory was captured by Russians according to different mappers, and now the Russians are keeping advancing further in the western direction. And with this pace of offensive operation, we believe that in coming months the Russians would be able to establish complete control over the territory, which will allow the Russians to create a foothold before moving further in the direction of two settlements in this area, the settlement of Shostka and the settlement of Glukhov. If Russians take on the complete control of these two villages, the Russians most likely will be able to force the Ukrainians to remove their launching site deeper in the direction of the city of Kiev, which obviously will allow the Russians to receive additional seconds or minutes or even hours to understand whether the Ukrainians are attacking or launching something, or they're preparing themselves. Furthermore, the Russians, with this progress, will be able to establish additional equipment for drones, and drones will be able to get to the city of Kiev with less problems from the Ukrainian side. So now we understand that the northern offensive operation is imminent, and it seems that this offensive operation has already begun. Furthermore, according to information we have, the Russians improved their position significantly to the east of the city of Sumy. This information was provided by different mappers during the previous 24 hours. This is the second direction where the Russians are keeping advancing. As of now, the Russians are tasked to establish complete control over the settlement by the name of Krasnopolya. Furthermore, the Russians continue offensive operation in the area of the city of Konstantinovka. The Russians began this offensive operation a long time ago, and today we received several updates that confirm that the Russians managed to improve their positions in the area of the settlement of Stepanovka. This information was provided by neutral mappers. The Russians are keeping advancing further in the northern direction with the purpose to attack the settlement of Dolgobavka. The Russians are about to establish complete control over the the settlement of Ilinka, which is located to the west of the city of Konstantinovka. The Russians will use this settlement to continue offensive operation, to deepen their offensive operation in the direction of the city of Konstantinovka, and the Russians improve their positions to the east of the city, to the west of the settlement of Stupachki. We're talking about this territory with dense network of the fortifications. So the Russians are advancing from three directions. Yes, the pace of Russian offensive is very slow, but the most important thing that the Russians are moving. Now let's talk about the Dnipropetrovsk direction. During the previous 24 hours, additional changes on the ground were recorded in this area as well. And telling the truth, the previous 24 hours weren't the only 24 hours when the changes were recorded. So, for example, right now in front of your screens, we can see how the situation have been developed since the beginning of March of 2026. As you can see, almost every single day, we were adjusting the map in Russian favor, and all these changes and the number of changes and the pace of changes tell us, yes, the Russians launched their major offensive operation with the purpose to break through the Ukrainian defenses in the Dnipropetrovsk direction, to outflank the settlement of Dobropolye and to answer the Dnipropetrovsk operational space that opens the Russians the way further in the direction of the city of Dnipro itself. During the previous 24 hours, lots of updates we received from this area, and we have changes that were confirmed by different sources and changes that were confirmed by geolocations. As for the Zaporizhzhia direction, during the previous 24 hours, we haven't received almost anything. The Russians continued bombing and attacking the city of Orekhov with artillery and FPV drones, and the Russians continue advancing further in the direction of the river of Konka. And for these purposes, the Russians were hunting and attacking positions of FPV drone operators and artillery systems of the armed forces of Ukraine in this area. So it seems that the Russians are answering their major spring military campaign and spring offensive operation, which will only intensify from day to day. And that's it for today. The Military with Summary channel reminds we condemn any violence in the world. Thank you for your watching. Subscribe to my channel, put your likes, join my Patreon, and have a good day. Bye bye.